The year was 1874, deep in the American frontier, where endless plains stretched beneath a sky that seemed larger than the world itself. Small wooden towns were scattered across the dusty land, and every family depended on the harvest to survive. In the little settlement of Willow Creek, everyone knew 18-year-old Clara Bennett. She was an orphan who had lost both her parents to a fever years earlier. Since then, she had lived with her elderly grandmother, Martha, in a tiny weathered cabin on the edge of town. Life had never been kind to Clara, but hardship had taught her patience instead of bitterness. Every sunrise found her working odd jobs, sewing clothes, gathering firewood, and helping neighbors milk cows just to earn enough for flour and lamp oil. Her grandmother often reminded her, "A rich heart can survive where a rich pocket cannot." One autumn afternoon, an auction was held outside the county courthouse. Several parcels of land were being sold after their owners had abandoned them. Farmers crowded around, hoping to purchase fertile fields beside the river. Near the end of the auction, one final piece of land remained. It was a dry, rocky hillside where almost nothing had grown for years. Everyone called it the dead field. The auctioneer sighed. "Does anyone offer $10? Silence filled the crowd. Clara stepped forward with a small cloth pouch containing nearly every coin she had saved over 5 years. "I'll take it." Laughter erupted across the square. Old rancher Thomas Reed shook his head. "Girl, you've bought nothing but rocks." Another farmer chuckled. "Perhaps she plans to raise stones instead of crops." Even the auctioneer looked surprised before handing Clara the deed. She ignored every cruel remark and thanked him politely. When she returned home, Martha studied the faded paper. "You spent everything?" "Yes." "Were you certain?" Clara smiled gently. "Father always said beans could grow where pride could not." Her grandmother nodded thoughtfully. "Then we'll plant beans." Throughout the winter, Clara hauled wagon loads of manure from nearby stables. She collected leaves from the woods, mixed them into compost, and carefully turned every inch of the stubborn soil by hand. People passing by laughed daily. "There goes the orphan digging a grave for her savings. She'll starve before spring." Still, Clara kept working. When spring finally arrived, she planted rows upon rows of hardy dry beans instead of expensive wheat or corn. Many neighbors mocked her choice. Beans are poor people's food. Nobody gets rich selling beans. Clara simply smiled and continued watering every morning. That summer, disaster struck Willow Creek. The rains never came. Streams dried into cracked beds. Corn withered beneath the relentless sun. Wheat turned brown before harvest. Entire fields became lifeless. Families watched months of labor disappear. One evening, Thomas Reed stood in his ruined cornfield with tears in his eyes. "My harvest is gone." Across town, barns emptied rapidly. Food prices doubled, then tripled. Many families prepared to leave Willow Creek forever. But something unexpected happened. The beans growing on Clara's rocky hillside remained alive. Because beans required less water and their deep roots reached moisture hidden beneath the soil, green vines still covered her little field while nearly every neighboring crop had failed. People stared in disbelief. How is this possible? Within weeks, Clara harvested sack after sack of healthy beans. Her tiny cabin soon filled with burlap bags stacked to the ceiling. Traveling merchants passing through offered generous prices because beans had become scarce across the region. For the first time in her life, Clara held more money than she had ever imagined. Yet wealth never changed her heart. Instead of locking away her harvest, she placed a wooden sign outside her cabin. "No child in Willow Creek will go hungry." Every afternoon, mothers lined up carrying baskets. Clara measured beans into each one. Those who could pay gave a few coins. Those who could not receive food anyway. Even Thomas Reed approached one evening, removing his worn hat with shame. "I laughed at you. I know. I was wrong." Clara filled his sack completely. "Your grandchildren still need supper." His eyes filled with tears. "I don't deserve this kindness." She smiled. "Kindness isn't earned. It's shared." News of the generous orphan spread across neighboring counties. 1 month later, a merchant from St. Louis arrived after hearing about the remarkable harvest. He inspected Clara's beans carefully. They're excellent quality. He offered her a contract to supply dry beans to trading posts across Missouri and Kansas every year. The agreement guaranteed more income than most farmers in Willow Creek earned in several seasons. Using her profits wisely, Clara bought another neglected field beside the first one. Again, people questioned her. Again, she enriched the soil instead of chasing quick riches. Within a few years, the barren hills became thriving farmland covered with beans, vegetables, fruit trees, and grazing animals. She hired struggling families rather than wealthy landowners' sons. Widows found steady work. Orphans learned farming instead of begging. Even during difficult seasons, no family working on Clara's land ever went hungry. Years later, when Martha peacefully passed away, the entire town attended her funeral. The town pastor spoke softly. Many believed barren land was worthless. But God often hides his greatest blessings where proud eyes refuse to look. Clara looked across the same rocky hillside everyone had mocked years before. Golden sunlight covered fields overflowing with life. She realized the land had never truly been barren. Only hope had been missing. Long after Clara grew old, parents in Willow Creek told their children the story of the orphan who bought the land everyone laughed at. They taught that wisdom often whispers while pride laughs loudly. And whenever Drought returned to the frontier, families planted beans alongside their other crops, remembering the young orphan whose faith had once saved an entire community from hunger. The greatest harvest had never been the beans. It had been the compassion that grew from one young woman's courage to believe in forgotten land when no one else could.